Hey, I'm Scott, and I am an American in Bangkok. And I came across an article. Every day I do a bit of reading about what's going on here, what's going on around the world, do a little bit of research here and there. And I stumbled upon an opinion piece from the Thai Inquirer. In a race to the bottom, Prayut stands with the worst world leaders. And this was written by Cod Setrusayang. And let me just get right into it here. Our leaders seem to be headed in a competitive race to the bottom. Trump, Pedro Sanchez of Spain, Xi Jinping, and even Generalissimo Prayut of Thailand have come under criticisms from their respective populace over the handling of the coronavirus outbreak. All of these men once had a strong base of support, which was impervious to outside attempts at influence or even arguments based on reason and logic. Yet the COVID-19 outbreak has penetrated their Teflon-coated shells. It remains to be seen whether leaders so dependent on the power of their personality can survive a crisis where scaremongering and grandstanding has so little effect on the outcome. The astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson was once asked about climate change denial and the ignorance of the evidence. His answer was apt and appropriate for the current crisis. Science doesn't care about your feelings or what you think. It will happen whether or not you like it. Well, the virus doesn't care for propaganda or rhetoric. It matters little whether it's from China or Arkansas. If unprepared, it will spread, infect, and kill. In the United States, Trump... Now, I have to say, this article, the reason that I was really intrigued by this article is over a year old. This is was written in March of 2020. In the United States, Trump has made a living reading wisecracks and boasts. His popularity hinges on his ability to project his own power and the image that he was dominating every subject matter, no matter the subject. Yet the largest personality in the room matters little when there's so little substance to back it up. The U.S. is headed towards a massive outbreak. Yes, it was. With state governments shutting down entire cities in a bid to curtail the virus. It hasn't helped that Trump... I don't know why this is about Trump, but I'll get past this. It hasn't helped that Trump has gutted his infectious disease office, or that he didn't think much of the threat until very recently, or that his understanding of science is superseded by his ego. U.S. experts have said it is likely to get worse before it gets better once the smoke clears. If it clears from the carnage that COVID-19 has brought, it will be interesting to see if Trump's base and their sentiments survive intact. In China, Xi Jinping was made president for life. It seemed nothing could penetrate the personality cult and propaganda wall that protected the Chinese leader from criticism. Winnie the Pooh memes, criticism about concentration camps for Muslims, even last year's ongoing battle with pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong did little to dent Xi's popularity. Or at the very least, there was little appetite for taking on the state apparatus by criticizing Xi Jinping. The outbreak that seemed to change that, the residents of Wuhan, by all accounts, care little for their leader, jaded by the central government's combination of propaganda before reality in inaction at the onset. It took thousands of deaths, including that of the whistleblower that notified the world of the virus, Dr. Li, to tend Xi's stranglehold on information and popularity, but it seems to have done so. As many analysts pointed out, for the first time in a long time, Xi Jinping looks vulnerable. Which brings us to our dear leader. Like it or not, Prayut Chan-o-cha was popular with certain sectors of the Thai population. How else would you explain the millions that voted for the Palang Pracharat party? They certainly were not voting for Tamanat or Parina or even Paibun. They were voting for Generalissimo Prayut Chan-o-cha, protector of Thailand, dictator, and all-around good guy. But Uncle Two, as he is known to the Thais, has never seen his popularity sink lower than it has now. Masterminding a coup against a democratically elected government didn't do it. Blaming victims for their own rape and murders didn't do it. Being allowed to become premier by a shady constitution didn't do it, but this coronavirus is denting his popularity. It is all anecdotal, of course. Thailand still doesn't really do polling properly because the truth is inconvenient, but those who have long been Uncle Two's biggest fans are now the ones calling for his head. People who have led protests calling for an unelected government have questioned publicly the government's response to this crisis. And boy, what a response it has been. Whether it is a tone-deaf speech when the country needs uniting, Thailand must win, remember? Or allowing a cabinet minister to associate with illegal exporters of face masks, or even prioritizing Chinese tourists over his own people. Uncle Two has dropped the ball every opportunity he's been given. Perhaps now his base will wake up to the fact that men who assume power based purely on the back of crisis with the threat of violence are not best qualified to run a country. Perhaps indeed, but epiphanies are bittersweet when we are all dying from the virus. Years ago, he was loved by millions of people. There were quite a few people who really liked him. And now, listen, as I've said many times, when people start worrying about their food supply, worrying about how are their children going to eat, people change their attitudes very quickly. At first it's, oh, I love him. And then it's, oh, wow, that's not good regarding this situation. And then it's, hey, all these other countries have vaccines. Why don't we have vaccines? And then it's, hey, why do we have Sinovac? Why do we have Sinovac and AstraZeneca? Why don't we have Moderna? Why is the military asking for only Moderna, and yet we, the people, are only getting Sinovac and AstraZeneca? So there's a lot of questions and a lot of reasons for the masses here to consider their leadership or reconsider their leadership. Anecdotally, the people that I have talked to do not like Uncle Two at this juncture because they're suffering and they're not prospering. If they were prospering, they'd love him. They're not prospering. There are too many people that are suffering. They're out of work, they're out of money, they're out of food, and they're out of hope. That's all I have. I'm Scott. I'm an American in Bangkok. Until next time, Choke D, that's good luck. Leo Jerken Mai, that's see you later. Please remember to click like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what you think and check the description. There's a host of ways that you can help support the channel. I appreciate it. Until next time.